Welcome to Dot Social, the first podcast to explore the world of decentralized social media. Each episode, host Mike McHugh talks to a leader in this movement, someone who sees the fediverse's tremendous potential and understands that this could be the internet's next wave. Today, Mike's talking to Ben Werdmuller, Senior Director of Technology at ProPublica, and Jason Koebler, a founder and journalist at 404 Media. Jason used to be the editor-in-chief at Motherboard, and Ben also has a rich history in media and tech at places like the 19th, Medium, and the Matter Accelerator for media startups. Both men are forward-looking thinkers who care deeply about the future of high-quality journalism. We hope you enjoy this conversation.
Jason Koebler, Ben Werdmuller, welcome to Dot Social. It's great to have you guys here.
Thanks for having us. I'm really excited for this convo.
Yeah, real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You guys are two of what I consider to be the most thoughtful people in the world of online media, publishing on the web. You're both entrepreneurs as well. I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to you guys about where you see this world going. And, I wanted to start, Jason, by saying, first of all, congratulations on your 1-year anniversary at 404 Media.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we sort of were very nervous in the run up to the 1 year because, it's a subscription business and you launch something and a lot of people sign up as annual members and you hope you haven't done something in that first year to upset everyone and have them mass cancel their subscriptions. But that didn't happen. So we're here to stay, hopefully.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And I really liked the letter that you put out where you talk about what you've learned in your first year. And there was a quote in there I wanted to maybe start with and get your guys' thoughts on this. So in this letter, where you talk about, the things that you've done, how you started the company, the journalism that you've done. It's just a fantastic letter. At the end, you talk about your biggest challenge. And you say, the biggest challenge that we face is discoverability. To the extent possible, we don't want to have to rely on social media algorithms, search engines that don't index us properly, and which are increasingly shoving AI answers into their homepages, and an internet ecosystem that is increasingly polluted by low-quality AI spam. That is a incredibly good encapsulation of, I think, not only is this your biggest challenge, but I think is, the web's biggest challenge, online media's biggest challenge. Anyone who's a quality journalist, trying to build any kind of audience or business on the web, big or small, this is the challenge of our time. And I thought it was a fantastic summary.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for saying that. And I think we launched at a very opportune time. I think we launched in August 2023. And I was the editor-in-chief of Motherboard, the tech site at Vice, for quite some time. And I stopped working at Vice on Friday and we launched on a Tuesday. And this was kind of after many years of working very hard. And I probably could have used some time off. But I feel like the attention span on the internet is very brief. And we sort of felt like there would be one moment where if we disappeared for a long period of time, it would have been difficult for us to start a new thing. And I think that we had the privilege of sort of being associated with a large publication and being associated with Motherboard, which was, a publication that a lot of people respected. We had a lot of readers there. But it has been our biggest challenge. We've seen the fracturing of social media sort of 5 years ago. We used to just tweet all of our stories on Twitter. It's no longer Twitter. And many people have left that there for very good reasons. And now it's when we publish a story, we have to post it on 5 or 6 or 7 different platforms. And our audience is really fractured. And you're sort of at the mercy of, is a story going to be picked up by a Google search algorithm, or are you going to win the Reddit lottery or the Hacker News lottery? Or is it going to do well on Flipboard, which, I'm very happy that we're on Flipboard and have had some success getting readers from there.
One of the things that I love about being a subscriber is you also get this full text RSS feed, which I thought was a really great thing to include as part of a subscription. I think it's been really just heartening to see your organization thriving in the midst of a lot of other organizations falling apart and going out of business. So you're obviously doing a number of things right. I think, the basic first principles of just, hey, write something meaningful that people are interested in and ask them to support you. And so the interesting thing, of course, is then how do you scale that? Or do you even want to scale that? And how does technology play in here? And, to help with this discovery challenge that you've talked about. Ben, you've been a technologist for a long time. You're running the technology team at ProPublica now, right?
Yeah.
And also I know you were at Medium/Matter, helping to build that out as well.
So I was at Medium, and then I was at Matter. There was a Matter that was associated with Medium. It wasn't that Matter. I was involved in another thing called Matter, which was actually an accelerator for early stage media startups. So I supported 75 early stage technology companies involved in media, basically, and learned about their challenges too. And then we partnered with sort of the New York Times, the Associated Press, KQED, and so on. So I've had a look sort of inside a lot of different media organizations. And then for the last couple of years, I've actually been inside a newsroom myself. And having started in the world of helping people to publish on their own sites, helping people to establish their own communities on their own terms, using open source software, that's been the thrust of my career. It's been a really interesting time to come into media, because it turns out, this was by accident, but it turns out that those are some of the ideas that are probably the most important when it comes to finding audiences and kind of building trust and building a community for publishers today.
So when you look at this from a technology point of view, from the web, and what we've been working on with the Fediverse and the open social web, what are your thoughts as it relates to how 404 Media and other kinds of smaller, new media organizations, journalistic organizations, should help solve this problem around discovery?
I mean, first of all, 404 is clearly part of the future. It's been really, really exciting seeing what you all have been doing. And the things that you are talking about are actually leading some of the conversation in media about this. So that's been really wonderful to watch. I think we're in a situation where a lot of teams and a lot of publishers got used to the internet as sort of being stagnant and being about kind of a certain set of social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, maybe LinkedIn. And that has obviously shattered. It's been, Jason, as you were saying, over the last 5 years, that's really fallen apart. Audiences have fragmented, and at the same time, referrals from search engines are also dropping. What it really comes down to is that newsrooms need to build direct connections with their communities. That can happen a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be about technology at all, but it turns out there's a whole great set of technologies that are about sort of taking out the middleman and really establishing direct relationships with the people who both want to learn about your journalism and also need to learn about your journalism. And it's been really, there's a lot of potential for Fediverse, for IndieWeb, for other decentralized technologies to really come into their own here. What we've seen is that a lot have started with email, because everyone understands email. And so, the reason why people like email, I think, is that everyone has an email address. You reach your audience directly, and you get to know a little bit about them as well. You know who's subscribed to you. You know who's going to be. You know who's opening your emails. You know who is who your journalism is reaching. But these other technologies sort of augment kind of that level of relationship, allow you to learn a little bit more about kind of your community on a consensual basis, and really could open up the ways that newsrooms build community, if newsrooms are willing to actually pick them up and experiment with them and sort of jump on that opportunity.
It's been really interesting to me that some of the most innovative technologies that people like us are using are much older technologies like email and like RSS. You mentioned the RSS, full text RSS feed, and
Yeah.
it's trivial for us to offer a full text RSS feed if we had a website that didn't have a paywall, which is, some of our articles have paywalls, some of them do not. But the moment we add a paywall, the RSS feed cuts off at that point. And we use Ghost sort of as our backend, which is an open source CMS system, as well as it integrates directly with Stripe. So it helps us manage our subscriptions and things like that. But Ghost didn't have a way to deliver a full text RSS solution to paying subscribers, but not to everyone else, like to make it open to the entire rest of the internet. And I know a lot of podcasters have what they call premium feeds, where they sort of do an ad-free feed, or they do like bonus episodes or bonus segments on a premium RSS feed. And there are there's many podcast providers that offer this ability. And the way that these RSS feeds work are they're basically long strings of random text for the URL. So they're creating individual RSS feeds for each subscriber to their podcast, and they're getting delivered that RSS feed. And when they stop paying, it automatically turns off. And this is technology that exists for podcasters. But from what I could tell, it didn't really exist for someone who wanted to do something similar on a blog. And there was a blog post by Anil Dash, who is just a really great internet thinker, blogger, jack of all trades. And I think it's called something like "Listen to this wherever you get your podcasts" is a radical thing that many podcasters say, because RSS is just this open technology. You can go do it anywhere. And so we wanted to recreate that, but for our articles. And thankfully, we were able to find two people who helped us build this out, both on the like providing the full text access to it, and then someone to help us sort of like manage the subscription side of it. And this is very old technology, but for some reason it feels, I don't know, either innovative or futuristic to be able to deliver this. I don't know if those are the right words, but it's a lot of this old technology has, I guess, like another gear, like more to offer that hasn't necessarily been exploited in the ways that it should be.
Well, I mean, the internet was designed to be decentralized, designed to, have these direct connections, and like the web is built like that, right? So you have, you can set up a website, you have a direct connection with the readers who are accessing it directly in order to consume the content. Email's clearly like that. We lost that a little bit because, these third-party services that made it really easy to get on the internet, made their money by centralizing those relationships and really owning those relationships. And so it is funny that kind of all of that sort of older stuff, that older ethos of the internet feels like incredibly cutting edge now. But it is, in some ways, it's like coming home, right? It's like bringing it back to where the web really was meant to be, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I think there's a whole new set of realizations that people are having. Like, if it only could do A, B, and C, we'd be in a fundamentally better place. Email, of course, is a great way to build a direct relationship with your audience, but there are certainly downsides to that too. There's a lot of, challenges with emails actually getting through, actually getting opened. It's interrupt driven. It's a less than ideal scenario. Plus, we don't really have a two-way relationship. It's really a one-way relationship. We're broadcasting these emails. And I think that's the promise of ActivityPub. I've viewed ActivityPub as almost like two-way RSS, or maybe you can think of it as like two-way email, right? Where you can, at scale, actually communicate with your audience back and forth, and they can communicate with each other in a way where you don't have to go build your own social media experience or super high-end commenting system on your site. You can just leverage ActivityPub and the fact that these folks are already have Fediverse addresses and they can just communicate with each other. That I'm incredibly excited about. And that's one of the things that, we had John O'Nolan on the show. I don't know if you guys heard him on .social, but he is incredibly thoughtful about where he's going to be taking Ghost as it relates to the Fediverse. He's got a weekly blog post that he puts out, which is now federated. And it's really fantastic because I think, Jason, you're obviously you're already on Ghost. There's some other fantastic people on Ghost like Casey Newton and others with Platformer, where the community of people who are in the Fediverse will be able to be much more integrated into your communities, right? There'll be that, and that I think is going to be a game changer for discovery.
Almost every news outlet has people who are dedicated to social media. 404 Media doesn't have anyone who's dedicated to it. We sort of divide it up and sort of do it all ourselves. I think ultimately we will need to bring a dedicated person on to help us manage all the different platforms that we're on. But posting on all of these platforms is not necessarily the challenge. It's when people start responding on 10 different platforms and making sure that you feel like you are native on those platforms in a way that the people that are using any given social media feel like you're paying attention to them. And it used to be just a tiny part of my job to go and check my Twitter mentions and respond to them, or check Motherboard's Twitter mentions and respond to them. Now you might have to keep 20, 30 conversations up across 7 different platforms. And I think part of the promise of ActivityPub and the Fediverse more broadly is, honestly, by decentralizing, you kind of see a path where you can centralize the work again, like centralize it for us while being everywhere. And that's very appealing to me. I mean, I'm in huge favor of decentralized services and social media more broadly, but the idea that I don't need to post the same thing or slight variations of the same thing 10 times and then respond to it is very appealing to me. And then, of course, the portability of anything on the Fediverse.
I mean, it decouples the message and the platform, right? And that's a real difference to centralized social media. So you can bring the tool that you want. They can use your community can use the tool that they want. They could all be different tools, but it's one interlocking set of conversations rather than lots of different siloed worlds. One of the challenges that we see is really just is exactly that. Like, we're a small nonprofit. We have to figure out where we're going to spend our time. Where is it worth it for us to spend our time? And so, really understanding which networks, have the conversations that will lead to people engaging in our journalism. Frankly, that will lead to people donating to us and supporting our work is really, really crucial. And one federated open standard has the promise of allowing us to understand that more deeply, rather than having to rely on tools integrating with each individual social network as it arises. That hasn't quite happened yet. Like, analytics on the Fediverse are really underdeveloped, but I really do think that is going to be one of the core selling points as well, one of the really most valuable pieces of it.
Yesterday, notably, Threads announced the ability to see all the comments from the Fediverse on a post that was federated. So whether you've turned on federation or not in your account settings on Threads, which I encourage everyone to do, but if you haven't turned that on, you can see people commenting from Mastodon, from Flipboard, from other social media tools that they've decided to use that are all connect via ActivityPub on this one standard. Like Adam Mosseri posted, and there are comments from the Fediverse from people using a variety of different apps in the Fediverse, as well as comments from people in threads. And you're starting to see it come together. And I think it is, you're right. It's sort of like centralizing and decentralizing at the same time, right? But you're creating this place where you can post something, it can go out to many different kinds of clients and audiences, and you're starting to be able to see the conversations now coming together.
I'm not nearly as big of an expert in ActivityPub and Federation as either of you. In fact, I'm not at all an expert. I sort of broadly understand how it works, but I have been kind of monitoring active users on Mastodon.social, like the big, I think it's the biggest Mastodon instance. And I've noticed that it's been falling quite a lot since Threads turned on Federation. And I don't know if that is bad, but I'm very curious as to whether you think there is a correlation there of some sort, because and to what extent we should be concerned, or if we should be concerned at all, of the ability for something like Threads to sort of become a gigantic whale in this Fediverse pond, if you will.
I think what's going to end up happening, what we need to happen, is for there to be, we know that Threads is going to be huge. We know, I'm very, very grateful that Flipboard is doing what it's doing, right? And really being first class Fediverse participants. We need a few more, big tent poles. And then you're going to have a long tail of communities, which I think Mastodon is going to represent. I think we are getting there. I think that is happening. I think other people are working on this. I love, obviously, what Ghost is doing. I think and we're going to see more. We're going to see networks that we aren't aware of yet that are going to spring up. I do think we need to work on usability, and usability is kind of one of the key issues there. What I will say, though, also is that the Mastodon community in itself is incredibly vibrant, even though that might be true on Mastodon.social. There's a whole bunch of different instances out there. I ran a kind of guerrilla test. I don't know if I should say this. I'm going to say it anyway. I ran a guerrilla test twice for ProPublica. ProPublica is on the Fediverse basically because of the efforts of one person in our audience team who just was like, okay, let's do this. And it's been very successful. I ran we do, as a nonprofit, fundraising campaigns throughout the year. And we do it on the traditional social networks. I sort of guerrilla posted to Mastodon the same kind of fundraising link, and more people donated via Mastodon than all of the other social networks combined. So even though, and I did it twice, I did it for the subsequent fundraising drive, and exactly the same thing happened. So even though it's, clearly Mastodon, it's 3 million, 4 million users. It's not anywhere near as big as Threads. It's not anywhere near as big as the larger social networks. They're incredibly engaged. They tend to be a very informed kind of population. And clearly they've got the ability to donate. So it's definitely still a network to pay attention to. And then, I think as more networks join the Fediverse, we're going to have this effect where people who are maybe, let's call them mainstream users, are maybe going to join kind of the tentpole networks. And then folks who have very specific needs, whether that's in terms of moderation, whether that's in terms of features, may join the long tail. And I'm really bullish about that case. Like, I think I think there's a lot to be said of that kind of tapestry of communities kind of working together. And we are, there's already more than one tentpole, so I'm not so worried about Threads. What Threads has done is legitimize the Fediverse for other networks. They see this giant name, right, who is coming and supporting it, and it sort of gives almost like social permission to come and join too. And so in that sense, I actually really see it as a very positive thing. There's everything to play for. We will see, and there does need to be investment in other Fediverse networks, but I really do think the future looks actually quite bright for this. And I'm not somebody who naturally praises Meta. That is not kind of my default stance. But I really do think what they're doing here is a positive influence right now.
I agree with that. And my take on this phenomenon, Jason, is that we're in this moment in time right now where things are still very much moving around. People are experimenting with different social platforms, thinking through their social media strategy, rethinking how they want to, be online. And so there's still a lot more to come. What I think would be a problem is if people were leaving, let's say, Mastodon.social, joining Threads, and not federating, right? That would be concerning to me. But if people are leaving Mastodon.social and they're federating, well, that's actually fine. I mean, that's what the whole point of the Fediverse is, right? You can try, you can use different platforms, try out different, experiences, and still reach the same networked audience. I think that is one of the really key things right now, is to really help to evangelize the benefits of turning on that federation switch, because it's an opt-in thing on Threads right now. And the more people who do it, Marquez Brownlee just recently did it. That was a huge statement to many creators, right? David Amell came out with a fantastic podcast, deep dive episode explaining the Fediverse yesterday. This is what we need. We need more people to federate. I really do think it's sort of like a federate or die kind of situation, right? If you federate, you really can actually now begin to own your audience, right? Where, as opposed to renting your audience, as opposed to being dependent on whatever discovery engine is going to happen on Threads, and that's the only way you're getting discovered, versus the massive amount of innovation that's going to be happening on ActivityPub, that is now happening on ActivityPub, to create new ways to get more genuine discovery that is not about link bait and not about engagement, and it's much more about genuine connections between people who trust each other, who are engaging with content and are more likely to discover ProPublica and 404 Media through that kind of discovery process. Because people in the Fediverse they're not driven by some public stock value, right? They are driven by solving real problems that are on the internet. And many of them are creators. Many of them are bloggers. Many of them understand the challenges here. So I think by federating your Threads account, you are basically tapping into all of those other potential discovery things that could emerge. And in a way, you're also supporting the opportunity for these developers to try out all sorts of new ideas, because they can actually have your content in their app, right? Versus before the Fediverse, like, they have to go call you guys up and say, would you please post on my platform so I can get some people interested in using it, right? That no longer is a barrier. So yeah, this is a big deal. And I think what I also think is going to happen as a next phase here is that soon you will be able to follow users in the Fediverse from Threads, which then I think there's going to be a lot of people saying, okay, so where's my primary Fediverse account? Is it going to be on Threads? Is it going to be, on my own website? I think you're going to see a lot of publishers saying, well, hold on a second, I'm going to run my own instance here. Maybe, with Ghost, Jason, that is your primary social media presence, is your own website via Ghost. That's super exciting. And you can tell people on Threads to follow you on 404 Media.
Yeah, that's been one of the really exciting things about owning our own platform. I've talked to a few other folks about this, but I think that with sort of the rise of, quote unquote, higher quality AI powered spam, I really do think that the journalism outlets that are in the middle are going to die. I think that, like, the New York Times and CNN and really massive publications are going to adapt, because they have both the name recognition, but also sort of the ability to, join the Fediverse or join some of, like, innovate and sort of get with the program. Whereas, like, your Vices and BuzzFeeds, these, like, large companies that spend a lot of money on, keeping their heads above water, but are still kind of can't, like, they have their boat tied to these social media platforms, and for them to sort of start over there's not enough time. They can't turn the boat before they hit the iceberg, to mix my metaphors there. And then there's people like us, and there's people like ProPublica, and I know ProPublica has been around for a very long time, but very dedicated audience, like very dedicated point of view. You're not trying to be everything to everyone. Has the ability to embrace these technologies and also help build them and guide what they look like. I really have a bit of regret because I don't know that much about the technical aspects of things, but I do think I know quite a lot about publishing and reaching an audience and journalism, and just sort of like the types of features that I would like to see. And some of the most rewarding parts of having 404 Media is doing things like, building this full text RSS feed, which is not the Fediverse, but, similar vibes. And then being able to give that technology to other people. And we had to find someone to build it for us. But hopefully, if we sort of like scream from the rooftops enough and say, like, here are the features we want and why we want them and why we need them, then the technologists will build it. And, if enough people support us, it's like we actually have the money to help fund some of that, and then either open source it or make it available in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's why I feel a great sense of peace to be sort of like in charge of the day-to-day operations of what we're doing and have ownership of it, because it does feel like there's a lot of opportunities to embrace these technologies and to sort of guide them. But I think that if you're part of a larger institution that is kind of barely treading water, it's really hard to get on board without like bankrupting the company in the process. I maybe took that on a tangent, but that's sort of how I look at it.
I think that's really one of the most important aspects of this, actually, and it's one of the things that excites me the most. You can probably see me; I started to vibrate in my chair as you were saying this, because I'm so I'm really excited about the potential here. News has the tendency to think of technology as something that happens to it, rather than something that it can shape and build. So, and newsrooms have come by that really honestly. Like, it's they've been trained into it, because it is really hard to affect what a Google or a Facebook does. But open source, the open web, is actually available for everybody to shape and build together. And when newsrooms actually take that and take ownership of the platforms and really think about what they need and consider what they need to be first class sort of citizens in sort of the idea marketplace of the web, that, first of all, it makes the web better for everyone. It means that newsrooms actually have technology that truly serves them. And it creates an ecosystem where journalism can actually reach the people it needs to reach. So it's really win-win-win. And the idea of newsrooms truly embracing open source, open web, the Fediverse, all of these open platforms is really, really, truly exciting for that reason. Like, you go to a lot of the traditional journalism conferences and people are still kind of talking about, like, should we buy this platform? Should we buy that platform? What are other newsrooms doing? No one's really thinking about, okay, what do we need to do to meet our needs? What do we need to build in order to really serve our journalism well? And all of these technologies actually afford those opportunities. And I think, again, like from the technology side, there's a whole community of open source developers, open source movements, communities that are really ready to help people kind of embrace these technologies. And like, connecting the two is going to be one of the most impactful things, I think, to happen in news over the next couple of years. It's going to be really, really exciting. And I truly can't wait.
We're basically all part of Team Fediverse here. Like, there is an opportunity for these really thoughtful people who have kind of figured things out from, in your case, Jason, what you've done as a brand new media organization, and Ben, what you've been doing from a tech point of view across a whole range of big and small companies, and what John is building from a platform point of view, there's an opportunity for some of these really thoughtful people to collaborate right now in this moment and actually shape that future. Jason, you were mentioning in one of the blog posts you did about 404 Media, and as you were creating it, noticing that you didn't really need to have a lot of super high tech here. It's just really, you didn't need to be, a technologist to set up this organization, right? And I think getting this feedback to the people that are building is one of the most important things I think we could be doing right now. Because I do feel like we are on the verge of having something where it's a lot more turnkey for someone to start their journalism effort and get subsidized through audiences that truly care about what that person is writing about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, is that if we tried to do this 8 years ago, maybe there was, but not to my knowledge. There was not really an off-the-shelf thing that we could have gone from having no website to having a website in one day. I mean, we could have, but not with the payment processing, not with the subscription management, like that sort of thing. And now there are multiple different options. And I think that, we decided to go with Ghost for what I hope are obvious reasons. But, you can go with Substack, you can go with several others. And I think that what turned us off about Substack, besides, its alignment with right-wing talking points and Nazis and things like this, which, to be clear, was a deal breaker for us, but was the fact that it felt like joining something that was very centralized. Honestly, it felt like it's
old school,
becoming it is not quite another social media network, but it felt like we were tying our fortunes to the success of Substack itself. Whereas Ghost, it just has, because it's open source, because it's more portable, because it's a nonprofit, it really felt like we were joining something that was not owned by anyone, and also felt like we were joining something that we could help guide. And if we didn't want to guide the future of Ghost, it was like, well, you can hire a developer and fork Ghost or add features to Ghost. It's very customizable. And I think that was very exciting to us. And it's the same sort of ethos that you see in the Fediverse. And I know that Flipboard is really doing quite a lot to help this ecosystem a lot. We haven't talked that much about Flipboard's entry into here, and I think you're probably being polite, but I'm personally very Flipboard has always been a quite a large driver of readers to all of the publications I've ever worked for, and I think that's a pretty important role for as someone who writes for a website, owns a website, uses a website. It's like, well, where are the people going to come from? And quite often, sometimes the people come from Flipboard. And the fact that rather than focus entirely on having a more closed, these are our readers perspective, the fact that you're supporting ActivityPub and the Fediverse is very interesting to me.
The Fediverse is one social graph that you can plug anything into. That, it's going to enable so much innovation as well. I think about kind of the startups I founded, which were all about kind of creating social networks, building, getting people to join and actually building that initial excitement and that those initial discussions was so freaking hard. And so being able to take, that graph where people already are, they're already having conversations, and then apply the new thing that you're building to it is going to enable, it enables absolutely newsrooms, journalists, publishers, but all kinds of new startups, all kinds of new platforms as well. And everybody gets to see the benefit of it. It feels a lot like the web all over again to me. And I think it's really, I'm so grateful and excited that you're doing this. And again, just to say, we also get a huge bump from Flipboard. The 19th, where I was before, joined the Fediverse, was able to join the Fediverse because we switched it on with Flipboard. And it's just a real enabler, both for publishers and readers. And there's just going to be more and more and more of it. And I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that is sorely missing right now, because, I mean, we write a lot about the threat of AI generated content. And I think that I talk about it a lot as like a pollution sort of thing. It's like there will be people who use AI and generative AI to make high quality content. But what we are seeing largely is that just a flood of stuff, and it's making discoverability a lot harder, as I said. But the people who are using AI in a smart way, and by that I mean the people who are spamming most effectively, are taking their cues from social media companies and from search algorithms, and they are optimizing that content to play very well algorithmically. I've written a lot about spam on Facebook, and in the past, if you wanted to spam Facebook, you maybe copy pasted things over and over and over again. But now you can make like quote unquote like new content that has never existed before, that is AI generated, and you will get the feedback of the likes, the shares, the comments, and then you can scale up what works on those platforms very quickly. And as just like, a person sitting at a keyboard, I feel like I write very quickly, but it's an article a day. Bigger investigation takes me weeks or months, and the feedback that I get from the social media algorithms, if I were to want to write for those algorithms, it's a very slow process. I get the feedback, I optimize it, I do it again, and it takes me a while. But with AI, you can do it over and over and over and over again very quickly. And I think that is what scares me, is that we have not just humans who are trying to optimize their content, both for search algorithms and for social media recommendation algorithms, but then AI factories supercharging that. And I think what's really missing is the human to human connection and the human curation, where, I mean, our sort of informal tagline is by humans for humans. And we really just want someone to look at our stuff and send it to their friends in a group text, or talk about it out loud, or add it to a stream on the Fediverse. And I think that has been missing. I know different people have tried to build it, but I think that a sort of like human curated feed of topics that are being shared because of quality versus because it has the correct keywords in it is it's desperately needed.
One of the things that I think has been the root of a lot of problems in social media has been the For You feed. This black box algorithmic model for surfacing content, regardless of whether you followed it or not. And it's a proven engagement and growth mechanic to what TikTok has done, for example, and what a lot of other social media companies have now done, is a For You feed that's 100% algorithmic, and sort of maybe it sort of looks at the things folks you followed, but it's still going to just recommend all sorts of other things too. And those things are a value judgment, how the algorithm is tuned. There's nothing wrong with algorithms. The problem is who's running them, who's programming them, what are they designed to do, what are the motivations behind them. And that has led to massive pickup of clickbait, conspiracy theories, et cetera. The question is, what's your sort of value system as a business to like go in and adjust your algorithms to sort of deal with these kinds of problems, right? And so this is the kind of thing that I think when you look at the Fediverse, there's custom feeds, there are other kinds of models, there's the following timeline. These you don't have these black box algorithms, you have more sort of an open approach to algorithms that I think really could transform how they're tuned so that you could enable genuine human to human trusted connections and discovery. I'd love to hear from both of your guys' point of view. What is one of your top wish list items for the web? And, might include the Fediverse, might not, but just as someone who's been, people building in this space, what's the biggest thing you hope happens?
I think that I have more of a wish for my own website versus the web as a whole, which is I would like to, and this is possible, and it exists, but I would like to be able to tweet to my own website. I think that The Verge has done a good job of this by sort of redesigning their homepage in a way where it's not all, where everything doesn't just look the same. It's not all just like links to articles and big articles. It's more of like a feed that, it will be a big article and then it will be a couple thoughts about, a smaller news item or something like that. And I would really like to be able to, and I believe the Fediverse and ActivityPub can enable this, and I'm very curious how Ghost ends up implementing this. But I would like to be able to pull articles from or posts from ActivityPub and put them on our own homepage in a seamless way so that we can begin to not just do journalism, but to do curation and sharing in a much more seamless way. I think that this can obviously be done now, but it is, as I understand, like relatively arduous to do it. I want to be able to do it in a way where I don't have to go into our own CMS, build a new post, and assemble it. It would be nice to be able to have a mix of quick posts, big features, photos, and then pulling things from social media, from the Fediverse, from ActivityPub, and placing it on our own website. That's sort of my dream for the nearer term.
I love that. Ben, how about you?
It's a very similar dream. I want a world where everybody can publish on their own website using their own domain and have all of the reach, all of the community, all of the potential connections that you might have on a traditional social network today. And then I want to go beyond that. I want it to be the size of the web. I want the network to be the size of the web, and for there to be more reach for people who are doing it this way than they would have on a normal social network. I do have on my personal website, thanks to the indie web, I've got tweets, I've got photos, I've got bookmarks, as well as long posts. I want everyone to be able to do that, and I want them to be able to key into community potentially from anyone in the world. And what's cool about that is I think we're actually going to get there. I'm so excited. Like, we actually are on that road. And I think, we're going to see some really major things happening, even just in the tail end of this year and certainly into next. It's going to be really cool.
It feels like a pretty small dream, probably, because I know it's possible and I know that's where we're going. But yeah, it does feel like that implementation is still a little bit tricky. And I think that if we get to a spot where everyone can do what I'm talking about and what you just described, it will help the health of the web in a way that is much bigger than, I want to be able to share links on my website sounds.
I think that's the key, though. I think it's not just about it being possible. It's about it being accessible to everybody. And I think that's the work, is bringing it to everybody and making sure that anyone can do it, regardless of their technical ability, regardless of what equipment they happen to use, regardless of what what services they happen to subscribe to. It's something that they can just do. And we are definitely not there yet today, but I really do think we're going to get there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's a huge amount of alignment from people who have the ability to move the ball forward in their areas of specialty to light the way for the future and to help actually build it and make it happen and collaborate on it. And I do see that happening.
I have one more, and it's a different conversation, but I'll just tee it up and maybe we can talk again months from now or something. I would really like to see the rehabilitation of advertisements on the internet. I think that advertisements have become like spyware, essentially, and they have for a long time. But I think that journalism has been funded in part by advertisements for 100 years. And I would like to see someone, and I think people are probably trying this, but I would like to see a return to a more healthy, less surveillance-minded advertising ecosystem, because I think that there's probably value there both for publishers and for companies. I think that so many companies are wasting tons of money on advertisements that surveil people, but also are being delivered to bots. And I think that we have to fix advertising if we want to fix the internet is my bigger dream. And that's a much longer term and more difficult problem, I think.
I'd love to build on that and just say an end to surveillance and a move from a platform-centric to a people-centric web, where people's rights and their sovereignty are respected by default. And I think that'll give you what you need and so much more.
Some of the greatest ads that I've ever seen that were the most effective were in a magazine. They were not tracking me. They were contextual. They were there, when I get my rock climbing magazine, I wouldn't be tearing the ads out of that. Like, I don't want these ads. These would be part of the content. There's a world that can happen again. I think that is going to happen. I couldn't agree more. This is a big deal. The business model of the web and how we evolve in a way that's much more respectful. It all comes back to that genuine respect for people and each other, and the genuine ability to have those connections. Not to bots, not to AI engines, but to actual thoughtful people that you can trust. And those can be brands. So I do think that's I love it, guys. This was a fantastic discussion. I'm incredibly optimistic about the future in no small part because of what you guys have already achieved and where you're going and how you're thinking about this. And I'm looking forward. We'll definitely set up another time for us to talk again, maybe 6-12 months from now, and see how it's going on the monetization front. And I'm excited for your second year, Jason, at 404 Media, and congrats on everything you guys have accomplished there. And Ben, super excited to see where you help take the technology for ProPublica, but also across the board, industry wide. So thank you again for being on .social. It was really great to talk to you guys.
Well, thanks so much for listening. You can find Ben at word.io and at ben@word.social. You can find Jason at 404 Media and at Jason Koebler at mastodon.social. You can follow Mike at Flipboard.social and at Mike@flipboard.com. Big thanks to our editors, Rosanna Caban and Anne Lay. To learn more about what Flipboard's doing in the Fediverse, sign up via the link in this show's notes. Until then, we'll see you in the Fediverse.